Joined as we are every week at this time by senior producer from NFL Films, Greg Cosell, whose weekly appearance on One Bills Live is presented by Pepsi. Pepsi is the official soft drink of the Buffalo Bills. Food deserves Pepsi. And Greg, I want to begin with how the Bills, over these last few weeks, have diversified their passing game to feature the tight ends considerably more. The last 2 weeks, 19 receptions, 207 yards, and 4 touchdowns. And between the tight ends and backs last week against New England, Greg, 13 of Josh Allen's 19 completions to backs and tight ends. How do you feel it might make Buffalo's passing game more difficult to defend and prepare for?
Well, I think some's been schematic, which obviously is by design, and some has been a function of what the coverage has shown them. For instance, I'll give you an example of the second one. I thought the 24-yarder to Kincaid, Brownie, I'm sure you remember this play, was 3rd and 7 from the minus 12-yard line late in the third quarter. Turned out to be a big, big play in the game,
it was wide
obviously.
Open.
But I don't know who the primary was, when that play was called, but that was a clear case where the coverage showed, because the Patriots ended up backing out from a pressure front and going to traditional cover 2, and they left the middle wide open. And Kincaid settled into the middle void, and Josh put it right on him. So I think it's been a combination clearly of scheme and then the way plays have played out. I mean, even the 14-yard touchdown to Knox, which came in the fourth quarter, which was their only snap where they were in what we call 0-2 personnel, where they had 2 tight ends and 3 wide receivers on the field. Knox did a great job of bending that route further inside when he saw Josh Allen move, because that was just basically it was 5 verticals was the play call, and Knox just reacted to seeing Josh move. So some of it is clearly schematic, some of it is a function of play calls, but it's kind of worked out. We've seen them do a good job with backs as well. The way they've the one play I love, which I love to do on the matchup show, and we've done it over the years, is when they send Cook basically from one offset side of the formation through the line of scrimmage on a rail route or wheel route to the other side. So it's been a combination of things, but it's been really, really effective.
What has been, I know we ask you this, unfortunately, we ask you this too much. Did anything schematically change that you noted from first half, second half? I mean, obviously, it couldn't have been more different for both those clubs. New England coming out this last week, hanging 21 points right out of the gate, and then the Bills come storming back and beat them. In your mind, what changes in those games?
I thought there were 2 things that stood out to me on film defensively. In the second half, instead of playing 4-2-5 nickel, which they did play, they played a lot of snaps of 3-3-5 nickel. Mm-hmm. Now, again, I'm not in the halftime locker room, so I don't know what the thought process was, but clearly they decided that playing 3-3-5 nickel with 3 linebackers on the field was a better way to defend the Patriots, particularly when they're in their nickel. Obviously I'm talking about, more pure pass type situations than playing 4-2-5, and it turned out to be really effective. The other thing that really stood out was they played a lot more of what we call 2-man coverage. So they played, 2 deep safeties and man-to-man across the board, and they did feature a spy very often when they did that, because obviously May has movement skills, but both those things turned out to be really favorable. And I don't know whether I don't want to say confused, because I don't know what's in Drake May's head, but he was very tentative in the second half. There were throws there to be made. He didn't see them as cleanly as he did in the first half, and quite frankly, as he's seen them all season long. So whatever they did, and those 2 things stood out, he just didn't see it the way he did in the first half.
Did anything change in Buffalo's run defense? Because certainly the Patriots snapped off the 2 big runs, the 52 and the 65-yarder. But,
Well, they only ran it 3 times in the second half. New England.
Why? What happened? What happened to the Patriot run game, do you think? What was that? Them or the Bills' defense?
It's funny you asked that because when watching that tape, I got this sense that, and Brownie made a great point here. I got the sense that that game, because the Bills controlled the ball for
Yeah.
so long in the second half, that the game just kind of got away from them in how they wanted to play it. And sometimes that happens. One thing to keep in mind, obviously there's always a narrative that Josh Allen is Superman, and you know how I feel about Josh Allen. But the Bills have the most second half rushes of any team in the NFL. And James Cook has the most second half rushes of any back in the league. This is a team that when they come out in the second half, almost no matter what the score is, they stabilize their offense with the run game. I mean, rarely, and I think Brownie, tell me if you can remember otherwise. Certainly this year, rarely do they come out in the second half when they're down and just start tossing the ball all over the yard. They
Yeah.
do not play that way.
No, and it's been very fruitful for them because they lead the
Yeah.
league in second half point differential at plus 116. I mean, nobody's even close
Yeah.
to them. So
Yeah.
they've been
So,
really good in the second half.
They're a very good running team. The O-line is played really, really well. They come out, they run the ball. We've seen their run game be extremely multiple depending on the opponent. Some weeks it's a lot of gap scheme with pullers. Other weeks it's a lot of zone where you don't see anybody pull. Some weeks it's a good mix of both. But this team runs the ball. Like I said, maybe many would be surprised that James Cook has more second half rushes than any back in the league, because I think there's a sense just out there that every second half is just about Josh Allen and no one else. And they actually play pretty strong team ball.
Before we get too far away from it, you mentioned the 3-3-5 nickel package that they ran last week. I'm also of the belief that they've come to the realization that without Michael Hoyt the rest of the way and without Ed Oliver until the postseason, they don't have enough of a speed rush from their men up front. And I feel like they've utilized their linebackers to fill that void. Now, I'm not saying the 3-3-5 is the formation they're going to use every week, but I do think they're going to be deploying Matt Milano, Dorian Williams, Shaq Thompson, those guys a lot more in their, for lack of a better term, speed rush package going forward. Would you anticipate that as well?
Well, they certainly had success this week, so you would think so. I mean, again, we don't know how each game plan is, and we can talk about the Browns momentarily. So we don't know how, Sean and Bob Babbage see, and the coaches on the defensive side see each particular opponent. But there's definitely a speed factor. I mean, they have way more speed on the field. Milano obviously had 2 sacks in the second half. There were times Milano and Williams were part of pressure concepts. So, you definitely have a speed factor. Obviously, you sacrifice theoretically size and strength. But, what you said, Brownie, does make sense. They probably don't have that one guy right now that you look at. And again, Bosa's had a really fine year for them. So it's no knock on Bosa at all. But obviously they did it. So, we're just saying what they did, and it was effective.
We've been talking about the Cleveland Browns a little bit, and certainly the team that struggles. And I in the film that I've watched, it doesn't strike me that Shedeur is out there necessarily struggling. He looks like he's got something on he doesn't stink, I guess is what I'm saying. He's getting better. You know what I mean? He does bring something to the table, right?
Yeah, see, because of who he is, I think there's a sense that, he's talked about differently than you would talk about a quarterback that has 3 NFL starts. So, I try not to get into any of that. I mean, I look at a guy that has 3 NFL starts. So what do you see?
Right.
You see some really good plays. Like when he hit Bond on a 42-yarder on 3rd and 10 late in the second quarter. That was a big-time read and throw by Sanders. It was late coverage rotation, which, by the way, the Bills do a lot of. And he read it, and he knew exactly where to go with the football. It was a big-time throw. Then there's other times where you just see that he's not processing the routes versus the coverage as quickly as he needs to, and that there are some throws that he leaves on the field because of that. None of this is to me, I mean, I've been doing this a while, as you guys know, none of this to me is surprising. he's only played 3 games, and we know prior to even playing that he wasn't getting, a lot of first team reps. So you're going to see good plays and you're going to see bad plays, and or less than good plays. Bad is a relative term. It's not as if he's throwing, 4 picks a game. Are there times he holds the ball too long? Yes. The one thing that can be cleaned up for sure, but I think it's something that will be talked about by the D-line coach and the linebacker coach, is he does have a tendency to hold the ball with one hand, both in the pocket and when he moves. And, that's something that can be cleaned up and must be cleaned up, because you really can't play like that on a consistent basis in the NFL.
One of the things I was going to ask you, he's got Bond he throws to. He likes to throw the deep ball. We know he's pretty good at it.
Yeah.
But the guy he's kind of leaning on more when he's not throwing the deep ball is the rookie tight end, Fannin.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that combination, yeah.
Yeah, well, they play a ton of 12 personnel. They're one of the highest percentage 12 personnel offenses in the league, where that means they have one back and 2 tight ends. And Fannin has become a really good player. Now, I'll be the first to admit I didn't love his tape coming out. He's played way beyond what my evaluation was of him, and he's clearly sort of their number one receiver right now. So we'll see. Now, I know they've got some injuries this week that will impact their O-line. I believe Conklin's out. I believe Teller's out. So they're playing with some backups. Of course, they've been playing with some backups here and there throughout the year. And when you're playing with backups, your quarterback has to be incredibly precise in playing with timing and getting rid of the ball. And that's where Sanders is still learning. Like I said, he started 3 games. People are, it's almost impossible to have a sense of what he is going to be, and which of course everybody wants to do that, but you do see some flashes. I mean, you're right, Steve. I mean, there are really good throws. Even the interception he threw that went off Judy was a big time throw.
Right.
So, Greg, what about how this draft class is filling large roles for the Browns? I mean, almost front to back. You got Sanders, Judkins, who looks like a tackle-breaking back that has some pop and punch. You already mentioned Fannin. You got Isaiah Bond. Schlesinger's killing it on defense.
Schlesinger's a really good player.
Like how are we just seeing this draft class on display because they need them in the lineup, or do you feel that they've earned these roles and Cleveland hit it out of the park with the draft class?
Well, I think based on production of a number of these players, and even Dylan Sampson before he got hurt, I think he's out this week if I'm not mistaken, but he was providing quality play as the complement to Judkins. I do know for a fact that when they drafted both those backs, Brownie, that they anticipated just what they were getting. Judkins as the foundation back and Sampson as the complement, and that was working out well. Schlesinger's been really good. Not just a guy that has to play because they didn't have anybody else. He's been a really good player. You could say the same with Fannin. So it's been a really good draft class. Obviously, the big question will be how they see Sanders. I imagine the next 3 games in their mind will determine quite a bit as to where they go at the quarterback position. So, and they're with him every day, so they know more than we do. Their defense has been up and down, but it's not an easy defense to play against. So, Jim Schwartz, one of the questions I love to ask offensive coaches that I know is who are the tougher defensive coordinators to play against? And Jim Schwartz's name always comes up. So, even though they may not have great people, obviously they've got a pretty good pass rusher, but even though they may not have great people from top to bottom, and Denzel Ward's going to be out as well. So, it's still not an easy defense to play against.
Give me some ideas of what Cleveland is trying to do with Shedeur. I mean, 'cause most of the time when you get these, an offensive coordinator will start to stay away from things he doesn't do well, try and give him stuff that he's absolutely done well, while trying to expand his envelope of, trying to get him to grow a little bit.
Right.
What is Cleveland's strategy as you see it for how they're handling Shedeur in their play calling and what they're giving him more of and what they're giving him less of?
Well, I think because of his tendency to hold the ball at times, I think you're trying to play the timing and rhythm pass game. You're trying to work off run action. You're trying to get the ball out of his hands. You're trying to present, which every coach does, but with some quarterbacks, it's more important than others. You're trying to present clean reads so that he can hit the back foot, deliver the football, so that he doesn't get stuck in the pocket. There's been a lot of wonderful conversation this week, and I loved listening to Kirk Cousins. I don't know if you guys saw that, talking about progression read versus kind of the old school way of playing. I don't know if you guys saw that clip.
Yes.
It's been phenomenal. You're trying to, I think when a quarterback is young and a quarterback comes out of college, he obviously doesn't know a lot about, Stephen, you know this, he doesn't know a lot about NFL defenses. So you can't overload him with what he's looking at. And then I think that's why pure progression has become such a big deal, because it's not that you don't need to know anything about the defense, but you're not working off, oh, well, this side is man, this side is zone. So now I'm going to work my man routes, or now I'm going to work my zone route, and plus defenses, and Sean's great at this, defenses do such a good job at disguise. So you can't overload a quarterback's head with all that. He's not ready for that. No rookie is. It's not a Sanders thing. So you try to give him pure progression reads where, in a sense, you're anticipating what you think you're going to get from the defense, and you have him just go 1 to 2 to 3 without necessarily worrying about all the nuances of defense. Maybe all he needs to know is, hey, is the middle open, middle closed, and where's the blitz alert? Other than that, just let's go through the progression. And I think that's what you're trying to do with him.
Last one from me, Greg. I know the system is the same, but Tommy Rees took over as play caller on offense from Kevin Stefanski recently. Has there been any noticeable difference that you've just kind of picked up on in your review of their offensive film? Maybe they've been too inconsistent to really make an assessment, and maybe they've been too much long down in distance to really get a handle on Rees as a play caller. But I was curious if there was anything that popped up to you that might be slightly different scheme-wise.
That's a hard question for me to answer. I really don't know. I'm just being honest. I think that Dylan Gabriel and Sanders are totally different players.
Right.
So, that's hard to get a feel for that. For some reason, Dylan Gabriel and I know that Kevin Stefanski really liked him coming out, which is obviously why they drafted him in the 3rd round and thought he could run his offense effectively. And there were times he looked like he could run that style of offense under center, play action, get the ball out. But to me, and I don't know why this happens, Gabriel just did not look throwing the ball like he did in college. It just did not look the same. I don't know why. Sometimes you see that with players at any position. Whereas, Sanders, I say what you want. I mean, does he have a gun? No, but he can throw the ball. I mean, there's no issue with his arm strength. He can make throws. I kind of agree with what Steve said. I mean, through 3 games, again, that's all we have. But he can make throws. He can get the ball down the field clearly better than Gabriel can. He's made some good deep throws. I mean, you've seen that, And I just think that if he can hit his back foot and deliver the football, which is obviously always the goal, then I think he can run your offense efficiently. And that's what they're hoping at this point. They want to run the ball. That's where they start. And you nailed it, Brownie. Judkins is a physical, tough inside runner. He gets hard yards. You got to get a lot of bodies on him.
Yeah.
Last one from me. And Greg, give us one last little take on Josh. I mean, we've said on this show, and you've said it, the way the Bills run this, sometimes it doesn't look sustainable, right? I mean, it looks like they dig this hole like they did against Cincinnati and like they did against New England. And, Josh gets the backhoe out and fills the hole in, right? I mean, he just gets them out of it. But by the same token, part of their recipe has been to take a lot of this off Josh's plate with the run game, right? They seem able to win that way. And certainly Josh did some extraordinary things, which he always does, but it does seem like a recipe for most of it that they can replicate and they will be able to win games because of.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the main question is, they used to have a lot of fast starts, as you know, and now they have a lot of slow starts. And again, they're not in the playoffs yet. So, but assuming that they get in, you certainly don't want to be in a situation where in the playoffs, all of a sudden you're down 17-3 at the half. So, that's a hard question to answer as to why their offense, although it's funny, I didn't see this first play live, but when I put the tape on and saw the first play of the game that Cooks dropped, I'm thinking, oh, that would have been, a 30-yard gain on the first play of the game. And that was a nice route combination. But it's I'm sure they're trying to figure it out, Steve. What they can get done earlier in games that involves the pass game. Because look, the run game's been really good, and we know that Cook does have the ability to be explosive, but percentage-wise, you don't get as many explosive plays in the run game as you do in the pass game. So the question is, with this, the run game's very sustainable. But will that be enough? Do they need to get more somewhere along the line out of the pass game? And there's no right or wrong answer here. I mean, I'm sure they're working on that, and if they can, then they're a really difficult team to defend. If not, then you get into these situations where at times it feels like they can go 3 or 4 drives and not a lot happens.
Yeah. Greg, thanks for the time as always. Have yourself a happy holiday, and we'll catch up with you next week.
Yeah, you two guys have a great holiday, but we know how it is, right, Brownie? It's football season.
That's right. Still working.
That's right.
Thanks, Greg. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Have
Greg.
a great weekend. That's Greg Cosell, senior producer from NFL Films, joining us.